2011 when the market shifted. That's when Enterprise laid me off, and I was pregnant with my daughter, and I
Mm-hmm.
was a good old 9 to 5 worker. Okay. I gave that company literally everything. I was on time. I was happy. Or I thought I was. I thought I was a great employee, but they let me go because they didn't want to pay for my maternity leave. Because Enterprise is self-employed, which means they pay
Wow.
for, they're self-insured. So they are their own insurance company. It's a big company. And they didn't want my birth, because I hit my deductible. They didn't want my birth to affect the branch's bottom line. So they fired me 2 weeks before I gave birth to my daughter. And that was a learning lesson for me. At that time, I was very hurt. I couldn't believe it because I thought I was a really good employee. I was number one. Sales. Like, how could you do this to me? But that was another learning curve for me to understand, like, never put all your eggs in one basket and always put self first. Because at the end of the day, when you're working for another company, even if you're working for another entrepreneur, best believe they're putting themselves or that business first. And you're just going to be secondary. So never allow no one to do that to you, even the government. So make sure self is taken care of, so it doesn't matter what's going on in this world, you're good.
You're listening to Sean Henry's Becoming, a podcast that focuses on the emotional journey of an entrepreneur from the thought of their business to the execution and beyond. I am your host, Sean Henry, a serial entrepreneur, speaker, real estate investor, landlord, 21-year retired Army veteran, and author of When the Bank Says No. I'm sitting down with entrepreneurs to talk about their processes and the lessons they've learned along the way. Fasten your seatbelts. The journey is rough, but rewarding.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Sean Henry's Becoming. I am your host, Sean Henry, and today we have an awesome interview with Renita Crawley. She is a real estate agent. We're going to make sure we get that right, because I know sometimes real estate agents call themselves something else. So we're going to be sure to give her the proper title that she's earned. So Renita, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's get this straight. So you like to be called, what's your formal title?
Well, I like to be called a realtor because there's a
Okay,
difference between a realtor and a real estate agent.
explain that,
And
please.
okay, so with a real estate agent, they don't have to be held to a code of ethics. A realtor does.
Okay.
So we have to join a board. I'm a part of the Atlanta Board of Realtors, and they compliance us and they check us to make sure that we're doing everything by the books. We're not trying to undercut our clients, and we hold a certain level of integrity.
Okay, so that's definitely good to know. So let me ask you, if we are looking for um let me ask this question. When would someone need your services?
So, someone who would need my services, anybody who is planning on moving, I help with relocation specialists. So, say if you were leaving Georgia and you wanted to move to California, I have a referral partners all across the U.S. that would be able to assist you. I also help people buying homes. So, first time home buyers, especially my people who needing down payment assistance, that's something I'm very passionate about because a lot of people um, may have the credit, may have the job, but they just don't have that chunk of money right there, like most Americans, to be able to purchase a home. And I like to crush those misconceptions that you have to be low income to get down payment assistance, which is not true. In the state of Georgia, actually the city of Atlanta, you can make up to 79,000 and be able to get down payment assistance.
Oh, okay.
So that's something that I like to share with people, especially for my first time home buyers. Also,
Def-
I help my investors. My investors, I'm a person that knows numbers. So my background, very strong with recruiting. So I like to sit down with my investors to see how we can make them money off the property. A lot of my fix and flips and buying whole clients, they come to me for their services. And then same with my sellers, people who want to sell their houses or their investment properties. That's what I'm specialized in. Pretty much everything in residential. I don't do commercial. I have a referral partner for that, but residential, I got you.
Okay, listen, we done got all the way in the middle of the interview just off of that one or two questions. So you have opened the floodgates of questions, other questions that I have for you with that, but I'm going to take some notes so that we can get back to that. But I always start off the podcast. Of course, this time was a little different because I wanted to be sure that I got your title straight. And thank you for helping us or clarifying that, because it is important to know the difference between a realtor and a real estate agent. A lot of times I think we use those words or titles interchangeably, but now we know that one is required to uphold a certain ethic, which is definitely great for the buyer or the seller. But let's rewind a little bit and let's back up. So give me a little bit. I like to get a little backstory about our entrepreneurs. So tell me, where are you from?
I'm from Lithia Springs, Georgia.
Okay.
So everybody is like, really?
Yes.
Yes. I am from Lithia Springs, and they always ask me, so where were you born? In Lithia Springs.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Where the Home Depot was. It used to be a hospital called Parkway on Thornton Road, but it's been bulldozed down. So I was actually born in that hospital. I went to Lithia Springs Elementary, Chestnut Log Middle School, Lithia Springs High School. So that is my real hometown. And
Wow.
yeah, it's amazing.
So that
It's not
it is
many of us.
amazing, because you are super, super rare, because, people from Atlanta, or actually you're not even from Atlanta, you're from the outskirts of Atlanta, Lithia Springs. So I just moved to Lithia Springs about a year ago, and I live literally 2 minutes or maybe 5 minutes from the Home Depot that you're talking about now, that used to be the hospital where you were born.
Yep, it used to be. Not no more. They bulldoze it down to make it a Home Depot.
To make it a Home Depot. Well, I'm grateful. Trust me, I'm grateful, because when we were doing work on this house, it was very easy to run over there to the Home Depot and get what I need. Wow. Okay. So we got a hometown hero here at Lithia Springs, Georgia, Douglas County. Okay. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have a little brother. He's 23, and it's just me and him.
Okay. And you say little brother, the 23 isn't little. Like, what's the age difference between you and him?
Well, I'm 31, about to be 32. So
Okay.
he's still my little brother.
So I have a little brother. We're 17 years apart, but I call him my little big brother because he's about 6 foot and I'm 5'5". So it's kind of crazy looking up to my little brother. But yeah, he's 22 or something like that. But okay. So did you grow up in an entrepreneurial household?
Not at all. So that's what's kind of different. I guess my mom and my dad, they did start a trucking business like a long time before me or my brother was born, but they both are still working regular jobs.
Mm-hmm.
My mom has been an accountant at that same job for 20 years. My dad is still at Cracker Barrel. He got that job when I was 18 in high school. He's still there. So for me, just watching my parents just working and getting those little small increments, that was just not the lifestyle I wanted. And I always wanted, when I got older, that when my daughter has different events like dance or after school programs, I wanted to be there and I wanted to be involved. And the only way I would have been able to create that life is becoming an entrepreneur.
Definitely. So being an entrepreneur affords you your time, your time to do the things that you want to do.
Absolutely. And I love traveling. And I like to take at least 5 vacations a year, and working a regular job, and they're telling me 2 weeks just wasn't cutting it.
You
Like,
you
that's
like
not
taking
enough.
how many days? What did you say?
At least 5 vacations. And before, I used to take one every month, but the way how business picked up, they done cut me down to 5. That's good.
So that sounds like a good issue to have. Your business picked up, so it cut your vacation time a little short.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's being in control of your time and the freedom to live life and to actually enjoy it. definitely attracted me to entrepreneurship as well. And as we spoke almost extensively in the beginning of this conversation, you are a realtor currently. And were there any hobbies or interests that led you to becoming a realtor?
Well, being honest, what really got me into real estate is me shopping for a house.
Okay.
Because I actually went through three real estate agents, and they couldn't find me what I wanted. It wasn't like I had a long, extensive list. I was very simple. I just wanted 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, in a good school district. That's it. That's it.
So what was so
That's it.
difficult for them to find?
And the thing is what was so difficult is because first I was pre-approved for 250, and then I also got the grants. I had 35,000 in grants. So everybody wanted me to go up to 280, or wanted to use my grants for their commissions, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I don't want to do that. And then my last straw was my last real estate agent. Um, the house that I wanted, the seller was in a desperate situation that couldn't pay commissions. So she wanted me to use my $35,000 grant to cover the commissions that for the city of Atlanta. I was like, no, that's not my problem. My 35,000, I want to go towards the principal, towards my home, so I could pay the difference and put 20% down, so I don't have to worry about PMI. So I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and just take myself to real estate school, and that's exactly what I did. And I graduated from real estate school, and literally the next day, I found my house on the FMLS, and I go to the office like, now show me how to use these contracts regular, so I can go ahead and put an offer on my house. And so literally my very first transaction was my own personal home. I was able to write my contract how I wanted. I was able to put my $35,000 grants towards the principal of my house. I still negotiated closing costs for myself, $3,500. I applied my whole 100% of my commission check towards the principal of my house. And then not that little difference, I paid my closing costs, but pretty much all of that covered my 20% down.
Wow.
And then after I did that and I told my best friend about it, I was like, yeah, I just got 52,000 off my house. She's like, how you do that? I was like, this how I did it. And she was like, what? Help me. So I helped her. And then after that, when I helped my cousin doing the same thing, it just literally I think my cousin Caprice Johnson, if you're listening, she is the reason how I'm the real estate agent today, because she literally let her whole church know. Everybody and her mama know that I was able to get her a house that she did not think she could get one.
Wow.
So after that, literally, I was still I wasn't really planning on being a real estate agent. I was happy being a recruiter, getting paid every week, and I had a pretty good salary, so I wasn't pressed. But when my business picked up, um, I was overwhelmed. And then at the same time, it was the same time when my job said, you know what, we don't have any money to pay you anymore. We're going to lay you off. I was like, well, look at God. Don't you have a plan? And then I just started real estate full time. And it's been a blessing because I've helped so many people who did not think they could get a house. I've helped so many investors, first time investors at that, who didn't even think they could get an investment property, and they did, and they're cash flowing. And they call me every day. I'm like, dang, Renita, thank you for encouraging me to move forward. And that is very rewarding to me. And that's the reason why I love real estate and I want to continue to do it. I don't think I'm ever going to really retire from it.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a blessing when you're able to help other people. So you threw out a few terms. So there's a couple of things that I want to backtrack a little bit. Okay, so you threw out a term, PMI. I'm a homeowner. I bought my first home at 18. It was very, very stressful. And I do understand when you're saying if you're approved for a certain amount, then the real estate agent is trying to encourage you to go, at the top of your budget, basically. So can you break that down a little bit? So you had a $35,000 grant. How did you get the grant? Let's talk about that first.
So in the city of Atlanta, there's several different grants that you can layer. So I did the Atlanta Housing Authority, and I also did the Neighborhood Lift Grant. So the Atlanta Housing Authority is $20,000. If you purchase in the city of Atlanta and you stay in your residence for 10 years, it's forgiven. And then you have the Neighborhood Lift, which is $15,000. You stay within the city of Atlanta. Well, actually, Neighborhood Lift is pretty much everywhere when they do have funds. It's not just restricted to the city of Atlanta. But you just have to live in the house for 5 years, and then the grant is forgiven. And so
So
you're
these are
able to
essentially
live.
loans. These are additional loans.
They're called silent second mortgages. So
Okay.
they don't accrue any interest, and you don't have to pay them back as long as you agree to stay there at that allotted time.
Okay. So both of them were 5 years apiece.
No, Atlanta Housing Authority. That one's 10 years.
Okay. So you stay in your house for 10 years, and if you stay in your house for 10 years, that grant was how much?
20,000.
Okay. And then for what was the other one called?
Neighborhood Lift.
Are you saying Lift, Lift? Okay.
Neighborhood Lift.
Neighborhood Lift. So then that was an additional
15.
And you have to stay in your house for 5 years. So you need to stay in your house for a total of 15 years in order to not have to pay back either one of those grants.
No, I have to stay in my house for 10 years. So one is for 5 years. So once I hit year
Okay.
5, that 15-year grant is totally forgiven. And then Atlanta Housing Authority from the date of binding from 10 years, and that one's forgiven.
Oh, okay. So a total of 10 years. Okay. And then how would someone apply for either one of these grants?
So you don't really apply for the grants individually. You'll have to go through a preferred mortgage lender. My mortgage lender that I love, who helped me so many times and all my clients, is Bonnie Stewart with Count Mortgage. And she's Black. She's great. Very, very detailed. But there's other preferred lenders on their website. So you have to use a preferred lender. Then the preferred lender runs your numbers, your ratios to see if you actually qualify.
Okay. And this was Bonnie Stewart with who?
Calcon is CALCON Mutual Mortgage.
Okay. So we're definitely going to send some people Bonnie's way for sure. Okay. So once you went through Bonnie, and then she ran your numbers and she saw that you would be good for both of these grants. Is that accurate so far?
Yep. So basically,
Okay.
I went to Bonnie because I really wanted to do Invest Atlanta. And Invest Atlanta has higher interest rates. And she's like, we ain't going to do that. This is what you going to do. And get more money. I was like, okay. Because I was really going in just thinking I was going to get just 20,000 at a higher interest rate using Invest Atlanta. And she was like, no, we're going to get you qualified for Atlanta Housing Authority, which is your 20,000. And then please note, if you're a teacher, if you're a public service, that will be 25,000 for you. And Neighborhood Lift would have been 20. So if you're one of those, if you're a teacher, police officer, firefighter, doctor, someone that's part of PEN, then yeah, your grants increase. But I was just a recruiter.
What about military?
Military, I think so. It's like, I think it's kind of, but not really, because the military has the VA loan.
Mm-hmm.
So I think so. That's something I'll actually have to go back and check.
But it's definitely something to check for.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
all the other services,
I'm
for
pretty
sure.
sure because it's public service. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you're in the military and you're serving in your active duty, I don't see why you wouldn't fall in PEN. Like, absolutely. Because you're part of emergency, public service, or nursing.
Yeah, in a way, but sometimes we're overlooked because, like you said, we have the VA. So they some of them are government, or excuse me, federal, and some are state. So it depends, like you said, but it's definitely worth looking into.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so she said we're gonna get you some more money. She got you those 2 grants, and then you qualified for the 250,000.
Yep.
Okay. Do you mind disclosing what was your credit score at the time?
Well, I have a high credit, so it was like a
Okay.
780.
Okay. So you had a 780 credit score. What is the minimum that you either assisted with or heard of someone could qualify for a home?
Well, you can qualify for a home with a 500 credit score, but you won't get any down payment assistance. You'll just have to
Okay.
put 20% down on the house. Now, if you want to use one of the grant programs, you do need to have at least a 620 for the Fulton County
Okay.
Housing Authority, and anything else above, you need to have at least a 640.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to get at. So a 620 or a 640. So let's just say a 640, and then that way you don't have to worry about anything else. You're able to qualify for the grants that are offered. Okay, so you mentioned that you wanted to use the $35,000 in grants going towards your the 20% that you would need for your down payment, as well as your closing costs. So can you tell us a little bit about how you were able to do that?
Yeah. So what I did is when I wrote the contract, because technically the seller doesn't have to know that you're purchasing a house for a grant. It's really none of their business. They just need to know that you qualify for the actual home and you're able to close. So when I went in, I negotiated for them to pay 3,500 towards closing, and then they agreed to that, and they didn't know that I had the grants until closing when it's time to
Mhm.
sign the paperwork. And then I just applied my commission check because I was a real estate agent. I applied my full commission check towards the actual principal of my home. So instead of
So
me,
how do you know what your closing cost is going to be? How are you able to predict that, so that when you get to the closing table as the buyer, you don't have surprises?
so the rule of thumb is whatever your loan is, most people put 3.5% down. Closing costs is also 3.5% down typically because you have to escrow all your stuff. So I always say whatever that house costs, times it by 7%. And that's a good idea of knowing, how much you're going to have to bring to the closing table. And whatever the seller contributes, you subtract that. If you have any grants, you subtract.
When the bank says no, Airbnb hosting without owning the property. Read how one woman took a bank's rejection for financing and turned it into a lucrative Airbnb business without owning the property. Sean shares her step-by-step process from picking her niche market to furniture purchases, all which led her to achieving superhost status in her first 30 days of hosting with Airbnb. Learn how she made almost $20,000 in less than 7 months while still maintaining her full-time job. New hosts are often unsure of what they need to do, making Airbnb harder than it has to be. Follow her story of determination and perseverance and learn how you can implement her practices in any of your entrepreneurial endeavors. Go to www.seanhenry.com. That's www.seanhenry to order your copy of When the Bank Says No, Airbnb hosting without owning the property.
You say if you have any grants, you subtract that as
Yes.
well.
So whatever that
Okay.
house costs times about 7%, you'll get a number. If you're using down payment assistance, that numbers, and then also subtract out um, the closing costs that the seller wants to contribute.
Okay. Okay. Um, all right. So then you were able to take your commission check and put that towards the principal of your house. So can you explain the difference between the principal and what is it called? Because
Interest.
the interest. Yeah. So can you explain the difference between the
Yeah,
two?
so the principal is the actual amount that you want to start, that you put towards to pay down your actual home. Interest is the money that the bank or the mortgage company is making off of you because you're using their money.
Okay. So the principal is the actual cost of the home, and then the interest is the cost of the loan.
Exactly.
Okay. So you chose your, and at any time, anybody who's purchasing a home, at any point they can write on their check or make a payment to their mortgage lender and say that this amount specifically goes to the principal.
Absolutely. So how it works as with the mortgages, you do have to pay whatever your mortgage is on time, and then you can cut an additional check that says principal only, and that will go towards the actual principal to the house. So the principal only payments, it does not reduce your mortgage payments, but it reduces your time over time. Um, so instead of you having a 30-year, because one additional principal only payment a year will cut your mortgage down 7 years.
Wow. So one additional, okay, so if my mortgage is
Mm-hmm.
$800 a month per month, part of that is going towards the principal and part of that is going towards the
Yes.
interest. So if I write a check for $800, an additional check outside of my monthly payment, if I write one check for $800 and write in the memo that this is for principal only, that one payment will reduce my mortgage by 1 year?
Pretty much, yeah. By like, if you do that consecutively, it will reduce your 30-year mortgage over 7 years. So if you like, that's the reason why people pay their mortgages bi-weekly, because if you pay bi-weekly,
Mhm.
which means you make 13 payments that year instead of 12, their overall mortgage will reduce by 7 years, and they'll save in interest.
Okay, and explain that too. So if we're using the $800, so if my mortgage is $800 and it's due on the first of every month, but they give you a grace period of till the 15th. So when you say by weekly, so that means I'm making two payments to my mortgage per
Well,
month.
cut it in half.
Is
Yeah,
that right?
whatever your, so if you'll be paying $400 every two. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
basically your same mortgage, but just cut in half. You'll be paying $400 every 2 weeks. But over that course of the
But
year,
I would.
you would have made 13. You would have made 13 full payments instead of 12 because you pay
Mm-hmm.
bi-weekly.
Okay, so if the payment is due on the first, again, they give you 15 days grace period. So I would need to have that 800 total in by the 15th though, right?
Well, if you're paying, well, no, if you're paying bi-weekly, the mortgage company will already have you set up to pay on the 1st and the 15th. Yes.
Okay. The
Yeah, you'll pay
$400.
$400. You'll pay $400 on the first, $400 again on the 15th.
Okay. I just want to make sure that our listeners are clear because we've heard this before, but then some people feel like um i- if they don't have the full mortgage payment in by the due date, so even that grace period of the 15-day grace period, if you don't have your full mortgage payment in, you're defeating the purpose because now you're
Yeah,
late.
that's why you have to set up with your mortgage company. You set up with your mortgage company because not all mortgage companies and not all banks will allow biweekly payments. So it just depends on whoever your
Okay.
mortgage company is. If they do, that's great. So you don't even have to think about, hey, let me write my additional whole mortgage at the end of the year or whenever you want to do it. You'll just automatically do it because
Mhm.
you're already used to paying 400, every 2 weeks. Now, if your mortgage don't allow it, then you can just pay on the first of every month, and then on when the 15th comes, then you can make an additional and check that box principal only, or mail a check and write principal only on it. Because if you don't do that, they're going to apply that whole $800 towards interest, and it defeats the purpose of you even putting in an additional payment.
Okay, so that's very important
Very
that
important.
we make sure that it's known that this is for the principal payment only, which is reducing the original cost of the home and not the cost of the home plus the money, which is the interest that the bank is or the mortgage company or the lender is charging you to use their money.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So I think we're very clear on that. All right. So then you used your commission check to pay towards the principal of your home. And let me ask you, in doing this and paying down your principal of your home, does that reduce your at the time of your purchase, does that reduce your monthly
Absolutely.
payment?
Yeah. So with me
Hmm.
putting 20% down versus
So
3.5%, I saved about 200, I think $236 per month.
oh,
So
that's a big
exactly,
chunk of change
because I don't
every
have to
month.
worry about
Hmm.
PMI insurance, because I put 20% down.
Okay, explain what PMI
So
insurance
PMI
is.
insurance is what mortgage lenders do to protect themselves. It's code for private mortgage insurance. So with insurance, technically, you would think that you would pay for your own insurance, but in the mortgage industry, the customer is paying for the insurance on behalf of the mortgage in case you default on the loan. So if you default on the loan,
Hmm.
then that means that they have the insurance that you've been paying for to get the money back. And then if you're using FHA,
Hmm.
FHA PMI is more expensive because you're going to have to pay upfront PMI, um, which they call UMIP. You pay 1.75%, whatever that loan amount is, upfront for the insurance. And then the PMI is on the whole life of the loan until you pay it off, which is typically 30 years. With conventional loans,
Wow.
PMI is different. Once your home gets 20% equity into the house, that PMI insurance falls off and you don't have to worry about paying it anymore, and it reduces your mortgage payments down typically about $50 to $60 a month, depending on the price of your home. So that's the difference. And pretty much all loans require PMI unless you put 20% down, or you can put 15% down and then you can pay up front the private mortgage insurance one time at closing, and then you don't have to worry about it on your mortgage.
Okay, so those are definitely items that our listeners would need to know for sure when they're looking for homes. And this is information that isn't really disclosed, or I guess because you don't know the questions to
Exactly. And a
ask.
lot of people don't
It-
know the
to-
questions to ask, which is, I mean, it's typical. I mean, I didn't know about this stuff until I was actually being honest. Well, I asked a lot of questions. So being honest, when I got pre-approved and they were asking me all this, I asked those questions to my lender, and she was very upfront with me and telling me what it was. And I was like, well, how do I get around that? Because to me, it don't make sense for me to pay insurance for you. You're not my child. That's how I think. Like only people I want to pay insurance for is my children, my mom, someone that's close to me. I'm not paying insurance for a total stranger or a corporation that I don't want to do. And she's like, and she told me the only way you can get around it is either buy a house that has a lot of equity in it, get a conventional loan and get a home and like fix it up. And then when you get the new ARV, if you have 20% equity in your house, then we won't charge you the PMI using conventional loan. Or you can just put 20% down. I was like, well, I know I'm not the fix and flip type of person. I don't have the patience for that. And my nerves are already that. And I really want a house. So I'm going to use these grants and I'll save up the difference and I'll pay it at closing, so I don't have to
hmm.
pay that insurance. Because for me, my first home actually is going to be, I won't say my forever home, but my home long enough to raise my daughter. I don't want to move her around. So I knew whatever house I was going to purchase the first time, I was going to be here for a minimum of 15 years. So I'm good with something that's already moving ready, and I don't mind putting 20% down because I wanted something just in case, like what's going on right now, a volatile economy is going on right now. I can afford my mortgage. And this ain't tank and plumble,
Hmm.
I'll be good for 2 years. I don't think it'll take 2 years for the economy to get
Hmm.
back up. So I wanted something that, regardless of how the economy is going to do, I will be able to pay my mortgage at the end of the day.
And do you recommend, this may be a silly question, but do you recommend when people are looking for homes, because we had the home mortgage crisis of 2008. So do you recommend when people are looking for homes that they're looking at the long term, maybe not 30 years, but at least the next 10 to
Well, it really
15?
just depends. I mean, everybody is different. Like I have a client right now,
Hmm.
and she's actually in the she actually is VA loan, and she moves every two
Hmm.
years. Because with the VA loan, you don't have to put any money down because it's 100% financing. So you know I'm going to negotiate closing costs. We're actually closing tomorrow, so you'll see me on IG. But she this time she's only gonna put $400 down. That's it. Actually, $403. That's all she put down when it's time for her to move in the house. And every time she moves, she's paying the exact same mortgage, but she keeps her house up really well. But the house that I'm selling for her, she's making four. She only lived there for 2 years. She's making $56,000 in 2 years. So she bonus herself every time she moves, and so she uses it as an investment. And then the thing is, if you live in a house for 2 years, you don't have to pay capital gain tax on the house because that was your primary residence. So pretty much every 2 years, I make her some money, because she moves
Wow.
and we literally moved to the exact same house. Okay. I already know what type of house she wants. It's so easy. She wants the exact same home. She pays the exact same mortgage, but property values tend to go up every 2 years. And so she done made some money and she don't have to pay taxes on it. So that's her investment strategy. And for her, she's a busybody. She don't like staying put anyways. So she just makes money for moving.
Wow. So that's definitely something that people do not hear. So that's good. That's a good strategy if
Yeah,
that's your lifestyle. So it's almost like somebody
exactly. But
leasing
she
a
gets her
vehicle.
money back and she's not putting any money down really to move. She just make every time she sells her house and
Hmm.
move into a new one, she keeps the equity and she can do what she wants to do with it. So, I mean, that's a strategy. I have an investor now. What he does is he buy houses in new construction neighborhoods when they're brand new. Because in new construction, you get the best deal with the first people who are purchasing the house because they have to endure the bill. So it could take a year to 3 years for the neighborhood to get completed, depending on how big the neighborhood is. So he'll buy 2 or 3 houses at the beginning at the low introductory rate, but new construction is quick. Like even if it's 1 year, you still I mean, the price goes up dramatically. Like he could have bought the house for 230. By the end of the bill, they're up to 275, 290. And what he do is he sell right after the neighborhood is finished. So it's like,
Wow.
yeah,
So
it's
it's
just
different
different. Yeah, it's
strategies
just different
in
because he
real
always
estate.
said, "I need to find me a new construction neighborhood, like very new construction." And then, like, literally, if it's the very first house or the first two houses, he'll buy them like then and there. He'll put a tenant in there and let them pay it. And also with new construction, you don't have to, worry about much maintenance because it's new. He'll put a tenant in there, let those people rent it out, and then when
Hmm.
the neighborhood is complete, he sell it. Like, so it just depends on like what your strategy is. And for my first time home buyers who are not investors, I always tell them buy a property which you think that's going to come up or be better or be well maintained within 5 years. Because in 5 years, typically property values go up. And if you can keep it, you can sell it and you can make money at least or get all your mortgage money back than what you're paying. With rent, you can't get your rent money back, but when you purchase a house, you can. And if you get, or if it's a volatile market, like they say,
Hmm.
oh, it's not a good time. The market, it's always a good time to buy because you got to think if you sell your house right now, you may not get the super, super top dollar now because the market is evening out. But you got to think when it's time for you to buy your new house, you're not going to be spending top dollar. You're going to be paying regular pricing. Because if you would have sold your house at the top of the market and get the
Hmm.
highest, yeah, you'll get more liquid cash. But when it's time for you to go into another house, you're gonna be spending top dollar. So it's like at this end of the day, you're still about the same, you know?
That makes a lot of sense. I love the strategy of your because I'm also a veteran, so I love the strategy of your other home buyer that every 2 years she buys a different house and her mortgage stays the same. So it's not, so the only thing
Exactly.
that changed
In
is
her
her
pockets.
address.
At that.
Hmm. Well, yeah, her
Yeah.
pockets did get a little bit fatter, that's for sure. So I'm gonna have to talk to you a little bit more about that strategy. But, excuse me, but I also like the I like the idea of finding new construction as well. So if your pockets are able to uh, maintain or able to purchase two brand new homes at that time, then absolutely, I think that it's very lucrative to buy them and then have renters in there, like you said. But then that's a whole different. Then you're buying as an investor, and so the interest rates and things of that
It
nature is different.
is.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's going to be different. So investor rates are typically 1.5, 2% higher than whatever's going on now. So right now, interest rates actually just went up. So they're like 3.99, basically 4%. So investors are going to be looking at closer to 5.25 or 6% if they're trying to, use other people's money or company, and if they have.
Okay, and this is the percentage that a lender is going to
Yep.
charge them for borrowing their money. Okay. Okay. And how long have you been
I've been a
a
realtor for two
realtor?
years. I got my license
Hmm.
a while back, but like I said, I wasn't really planning on being a real estate agent. So me actually working, um, yeah, 2 years full time, like a full time. The other years I was a part time agent.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. And do you consider yourself a solopreneur, or have you
I'm,
hired a
I would
team?
say I'm still solo because the two people that I've hired, they're both my admins. I would love to grow into a team and actually have a buyer's agent on my team that would be able to handle my buyers, and therefore I can focus on more selling my investors' listings and my sellers' houses.
Okay, so not only are you finding homes for people, you're also selling the homes. And you mentioned that with your other client, the veteran, you not only find a home for her, but you also sell the homes that
Absolutely.
she's moving out of. Okay, so you're
Mm-hmm.
cashing in on both ends.
So
Okay. So
yeah,
would
because I
you
like for
recommend,
selling the
go ahead.
houses. Selling houses a little bit more work up front when it's come to researching and marketing the house, but that's what I like. That's the part that I like doing. On the buy side is where I have to go out and drive and find the deals, and you gotta like it, love it. You know, it's more physical out there. Me, if I take on more listings, I'm able to be put and work actually from home anywhere in the world. I wouldn't be able to do that um, if have a whole bunch of buyers.
Okay. So do you traditionally, the people that you are your buyers, do you traditionally ask them if they're
Mhm.
also selling a property as well and convert
Yeah.
them,
So
or
what I
have them
do
as
is,
both?
well, it just depends because my clients come from pretty much referral. I'm a huge referral based realtor. But yeah, I have a whole buyer's questionnaire form that they fill out with me, and I ask those questions to see where they're at. And a lot of my clients, they don't have a need for me to do both. It's usually one or the other. I only have a handful of clients where I do both sides for them.
Okay. You may have gotten one more, just so you know. Just so you know, definitely, because this information is super fascinating to me. Based off of where I am currently in my life, I just hit 1 year with the property that I'm in right now. My previous property, I stayed there for 11 years, but getting into the real estate investing side, I want to be able to um, use my benefits wisely. Even if I move out of my current home, which I actually really love this house, but even if I move out of it and rent it out and buy another one, yeah, I'm okay with that. But you said that with the VA, I need to be in my property, in my home
No,
for
it's not
2
the
years
VA
and not one.
requirements. It's a tax requirement. So for taxes, if you don't want to
Okay.
pay capital gain tax, because anytime that you sell your house, when you're at that closing attorney, they're going to report your earnings to the IRS. So in order to avoid paying those
Mm-hmm.
taxes, those capital gain tax, that has to be your primary residence for 2 years. So yeah, the VA, I don't think you can
Okay.
move. I mean, pretty
So
much
I
any
just.
time. There's no requirement for the VA. That's just for tax purposes.
Mm-hmm.
If you want all your money and not, you know, have to pay Uncle Sam.
Okay. Well, that just lets me know I need to stay here one more year and then and figure out what it is that I want to do. Either I want to sell it or I want to rent it. Either way, I'm gonna put in my head that I may be moving in a year. So that's fine with me. Okay. And then so you have two bomb assistants, so that's always good. They're helping you to navigate in this process.
Hi, this is Sean Henry from Sean Henry's Becoming. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no listenership. It's everything you need to make in a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Now, let me ask you, what's your opinion on job shaming? So, mainly, like I've seen well, not since the coronavirus, but prior to this situation, there was a lot of chatter on Instagram about entrepreneurs kind of shaming those who had traditional 9 to 5s. Now, you spoke about earlier that your parents both, they have a traditional 9 to 5, and you just realized that wasn't for you, but that works for them. So what is your
I don't really
opinion
like the
on
idea
job
of people
shaming?
shaming someone because of the career path that they chose. I mean, at the end of the day, if that's what makes them
Hmm.
feel comfortable and that's what pays their bills, so be it. Not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur and go out there. And you have to have tough skin to be an entrepreneur. And not everybody's built like that. And I feel like I see it with some of my colleagues who I was like, oh, these W-2 workers. Like, okay, but they're also used to a guaranteed lifestyle. Like, I know it's not unlimited like an entrepreneur. Like with the entrepreneur, we can make unlimited income if we really set our mind to it, but you have to work towards it. But some people just can't fathom the idea of what happens if I don't make it. I thought I did, but I didn't, you know? And a lot of people don't understand, like, over time, you will make more money. You are going to have ups, you are going to have downs, but if you're consistent with your work and you can move forward, then you can make more. But there's some people who are just not consistent. So having a job will make sure and guarantee that they will have that consistent lifestyle. And I don't see anything wrong with that.
Right. Well, that's definitely the thought of having a job for sure. But now with this, and let's touch on this just a little bit too, with because this is what's happening right now in this state that we're in today with the coronavirus. There are many people who and actually I probably see it a lot now too, with entrepreneurs saying, okay, there's some people who have been told to go home, they can't work, due to this virus, we're told to basically separate ourselves from other people so that they can contain this virus. And I always felt like if you were sick, you should stay home anyway. So if you weren't feeling well, you definitely should stay home just to get yourself better. And but so since this is happening, those jobs that people were having, it's kind of in jeopardy right now. Some people are home because of this virus, and they're not being paid. So then there's entrepreneurs who are saying, well, if you were an entrepreneur and you worked for yourself, then this wouldn't be an issue. But I disagree with that as well. I disagree with the entrepreneurs now who are telling some of the people who have been sent home because they can't work, because they want to contain this virus as much as possible. So they're limiting the amount of human contact or interaction that we have with one another. But then there's entrepreneurs that are saying, oh, well, if you were an entrepreneur, then you wouldn't have to worry about this. And I completely disagree with that, because there's entrepreneurs who their job is being out in the public and interacting with people that are unable to do that as well. And then on top of that, people are not spending because they want to save, because they have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring.
So what my take on it is, it really has, being honest, it really has nothing to do if you're an entrepreneur or if you're a regular 9-to-5 worker or hourly worker. The main principle to help you get through times like this is your financial discipline. I've always, like, both of my parents, they're super savers. And I used to think they were just being cheap and frugal. But now as an adult, I understand where they came from, because they live longer and they have went through the downs and the ups. They have lost a lot of money during depressions and all that other stuff. And now they're still able to be afloat and still maintain that same house that I grew up in for like 35 years that they've been living in. So I really think if people take the time and budget their money and be able to put money to the side and also come up with other source of incomes and not be so reliant on one, they'll be able to withstand anything, whether they're an entrepreneur or a regular 9-to-5 or hourly worker. And I can contest to that, because I was once an hourly worker in 2008 when that was going on, and I actually just graduated from college and I was making $12 an hour. But I've always had 2 or 3 jobs, and I've always had different sources of income, and I've always had one job. No matter what, I never touched it. It always went to a savings account. Like, it just went to my savings. I never used it for anything else. So when times like this happens, you can stay afloat, and it's nothing to stress about because you're prepared. So
So that whole fix your roof
exactly.
while
So
it's
I've
sunny
always
out
been like
for the
that, and
rainy
even
day.
now as an entrepreneur, I still I still save majority of my money. Like, I'm still frugal. Like, I make 6 figures, but I only pay myself $4,000 a month, period. And I live off of that. I don't care if it went up to 300 or whatever, or $1 million. I'm very strict when it comes to my budget, because you never know in uncertain times on a rainy day, and something may happen. So right now, while everybody's panicking, I'm really in next week. I'm trying to find me a cheap flight to get up out of here in South America or something, because I could do it. I'm not really stressed. And I'm like, how do you do that? It's because I make sure that my finances are taken care of and my bills are taken care of accordingly. So I won't ever have to feel that. And I've felt this before. Like in 2000, was that 2011 when the market shift? That's when Enterprise laid me off, and I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was a good old 9-to-5 worker. Okay. I gave that company literally everything. I was on time. I was happy, or I thought I was. I thought I was a great employee, but they let me go because they didn't want to pay for my maternity leave. Because Enterprise is self-employed, which means they pay
Wow.
for, they're self-insured. So they are their own insurance company. It's a big company. And they didn't want my birth, because I hit my deductible. They didn't want my birth to affect the branch's bottom line. So they fired me 2 weeks before I gave birth to my daughter. And that was a learning lesson for me. At that time, I was very hurt. I couldn't believe it because I thought I was a really good employee. I was number one. Sales. Like, how could you do this to me? But that was another learning curve for me to understand, like, never put all your eggs in one basket and always put self first. Because at the end of the day, when you're working for another company, even if you're working for another entrepreneur, best believe they're putting themselves or that business first. And you're just going to be secondary. So never allow no one to do that to you, even the government. So make sure self is taken care of, so it doesn't matter what's going on in this world, you're good.
Definitely need to hear that. Even though we want to do everything that we possibly can for our job or our businesses, we have to put self
Mm-hmm.
first, whatever that means to you. What is the most
For
rewarding part
me, being
about
honest, is my
being an
daughter.
entrepreneur?
Like ever since I was 9, I knew I was gonna have a baby at 25, and I did. And I knew it was gonna be a little girl. Like, I'm one of those people. When I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it. And I was like, Renita, you extreme, but it's for real. I really do. I really believe your tongue is powerful. And I said this ever since I was 9 years old. When I grow up, I'm gonna have a daughter. Her name's gonna be Zariah at 25, and that's what I did. I grew up 25, had a daughter named Zariah. And I said, whenever I have my little girl, I'm not going to be like my parents. So that really hurt me as growing up as a child. That my mom, still to this day, she has never been to none of my dances or nothing, because she's always at work. And staying with my dad. They never came to any of my stuff. Like, I was on the step team, they never came to none of that. I was a majorette, they never came to that. I was part of step team again, and the majorette team in college. They never came to none of my shows or anything. I'm like, wow, like this sucks. So I said, when I grow up, when I have my daughter, anything that she wanted to be in, I'm going to make a point to be there. And I realized, like I said, real early, before, I wasn't going to be able to do that working a regular job. And I didn't understand that as a child, but when I became an adult and when I was working, I was like, dang, I realized, like, working a regular job, you're only going to get 2 weeks off for the whole year. Like, that ain't going to work. And that doesn't, that don't match a school schedule. It just doesn't. I say, now I understood as an adult. And I was like, well, there has to be other ways that I will be able to, make money and be my life. So before I even, once I got that enterprise thing, I became a flight attendant. And the flight attendant was very flexible, so I could bank my schedule how I wanted to. But as my daughter got older, I realized she didn't like the distance. So I was like, okay, well, that's not going to work, because I'm gone for 3 to 4 days at a time, sometimes 6 days if it's a long trip. And I'm like, that's not going to work as she get older. So I started being a 1099 employee, where I was a contract recruiter. Now that worked, but Lord behold, like I told you when I earlier in the conversation, when my real estate business picked up and my recruiting job, they said that they didn't have any money to pay me. They laid me off instead of me going out and get another contract. Because right now I could technically go get another contract, but I can't. I can't do that. Cannot do both at the same time. I love real estate, but real estate really allows me to have that schedule that's solely built around my daughter's school schedule. Like, when she's out, I'm out. Like, and that's the only job that I would be able to do and be able to have enough money to afford the lifestyle that I want.
And what are some of
I
the
think
challenges?
the
What is
most
the most
challenging thing about
challenging
being an
as an
entrepreneur
entrepreneur?
is, for me, I mean, I don't mind rejection. So I guess regular people who don't like rejection, I think that's the hard, to me, that's the hardest thing. Because me, I don't care. Yeah, I'll keep it rolling. I'll somebody else work with me. You don't want to, your mama will. If your mama don't, your daddy will. Somebody gonna work with me today. But that's just my attitude. But I know I hear from my colleagues that are in real estate, and I hear from some of my mortgage lenders, oh, I just feel like I'm chasing down people. But being honest, if you provide a good service, quality, you're never chasing people. They always will come to you. So for me, I don't really chase down people. I get a referral pretty much. I get at least 4 referrals a week. So people, from word of mouth, if you provide a service and you're very passionate about what you do, people will always come to you. You won't be chasing people. So I think maybe that's the hardest thing. But being honest, I think the really, really hardest thing about entrepreneurship is actually starting. Because, I mean, you hear a lot of people, oh, don't do that. How you gonna make money? Oh, that's expensive. You got that much money to start up? I hope you make it. And it's really funny, you hear all that stuff at the beginning, but it's tenfolds when you actually do make it. And those same people who had those little slick comments are coming for you for your help. So I always tell people, just start. That is the hardest thing. Just start. Go get your LLC. Just do all the simple stuff and do everything that's free first before starting investing money into stuff that you'll find out later. It's mistakes that I've done that you could have just did for free, but you didn't know. So anything that you can do free first, gain knowledge. And I always tell people to learn. Like whatever you're trying to do, research it. Research yourself, like research whatever your skill set is. Research your competitors. What are they doing? What differentiates them? Research your pricing, research your market so you can be an expert before you go out and start selling whatever product that you're doing. Because what you don't want to do is just start doing stuff and winging it, and then you start discrediting your craft.
Because you only need one person to say, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, this was my poor experience, and now moving forward, that's what you're spending more time proving that person wrong now that you have the knowledge. So yeah, that's a great tip. And that's a great segue to my next question. What is some advice that
I
you
would
would give
say
those who are
just do it.
considering
Just do it.
entrepreneurship?
And then when you start your little small foundation, I would say please have your money saved before you go into business. Like I've always was a big advocate for saving before I even got into entrepreneur, but I would say any entrepreneur, regardless of what industry, have at least 6 months of savings expense before you start working. Because the last thing what you're trying to do is try to work from nothing, and then you start working out of desperation. When you start working out of desperation, you start doing things that are not ethical, which will tarnish your name. And you're doing it not because you're really just trying to be that way, it's because you're trying to survive. And you never want your business to be in survivor mode. So I always tell everybody, have 6 months of all your living expenses, including your things that you want. Like if you want to get your hair done every 2 weeks, your nails or whatever, that including with your rent, including all your utilities, gas, food, everything. Have 6 months of that already saved, because it's going to be a work to get your first clients. And it's a lot of startup costs to start a business. So once you pay all that off, and if you have to work a full-time job, do it. Do what you have to do, but please make sure before you go full-time, you have that 6 months, because you are going to have downs and you're going to have ups before that thing start really taking off.
Great advice.
For
What's the
me, I
impact that
really
you're
want to
hoping to
educate
achieve
people
in your
about the
business?
importance of home ownership, not just home ownership, property ownership, especially in the Black community. I'm so passionate about this, and because I researched this stuff, and it makes me angry that we are set back in the way how our government has done us, like with the redlining, with the predatory lending, by charging us higher fees than our counterparts, by putting us and devaluing our neighborhoods than our counterparts. And they're asking like why we can't build wealth. And the things that they've done, it's just important for us to get property. And once you get property, exercise your rights and pay attention to those small local townships, because that's where it really matters. I'm a part of my MPU, which if you're in the city of Atlanta, there's 25 MPUs. I'm part of MPU H. You're going to see me at every meeting every second Tuesday. So if y'all, so NPU are neighborhoods. The city of Atlanta
What
is
is
broken up in
NP?
different
What is that?
neighborhoods. I'm NPU H. It's A through Z. So every little neighborhood, and you go to these meetings, and if the big company's trying to come in your neighborhood and you don't want it, you tell them. They're not going to be able to come in if we rally enough to tell them. And that's the importance of one of the exercises that you're able to use as a property owner. Like, say if a Piggly Wiggly wants to come in next door to your house, if enough of the people in the neighborhood can come to that NPU meeting when Piggly Wiggly is there and tell them, no, we don't want it, Piggly Wiggly's not going to be able to come in because the neighborhood don't want it, because they're going to devalue our neighborhood. So it's important, like, property ownership is not just building wealth, but actually having a piece of land that you'll be able to make a community of your own. And I really want to stress this to my Black neighbors and my counterparts, that it's important. It's not just owning a house. You dictate school districts with the slots, as far as your taxes and what and how you want the school districts there. There's, how do you think gentrification happens? Like, everybody say, oh, well, these people came in. Yeah, they came in because they know their rights of owning property. Look how they turned Kirkwood around. Okay. Kirkwood was a slum. We owned that name. Well, we didn't own it. That's another thing. We rented that neighborhood. They owned that property. And when they started taking things serious, they went to the school boards and told them what they wanted in their schools. They did the things that's implemented right to get the taxes where they need to be, to gentrify and get the streets and everything in order so it can be the Kirkwood today. And that's the information that I want to give our people, because especially there's so many of us here in Atlanta, it needs to be more Cascade Heights. And that's the neighborhood that I live in now. And I purposely wanted to live in Cascade Heights because it's one of the first Black neighborhoods that got gentrified. We, as Black people, gentrified a white neighborhood, Cascade Heights. It was a poor white neighborhood, and Black wealthy people moved in and gentrified it. And we need more of that here in Atlanta. And that's something that I'm passionate about. And we need to be able to do this more often and stop wasting our money on things that are not worth anything, like Jordans. Unless you buy a Nike stock, it's not worth anything. Invest it in something that's going to make you money and help you grow.
As we begin
They're
to
definitely
wrap
born.
up,
I
our
believe that
entrepreneurs born
you
or made?
cannot just make an entrepreneur. Something about entrepreneurs, you have to already have that burning drive in you. You can already have a vision that you see that you want to happen. It's a special gift because a lot of entrepreneurs, they have, it all started with a thought, and they're just so passionate on that thought, and to see it manifest, it comes to reality. And they do anything in their power to make sure everything is in order for it to come to fruition. So you have to have that already. Like, there's some people who just never have it, like my parents. Like, both my parents, they're hardworking people, but they don't have a vision past, oh, I'm just gonna make this money and just to take care of my family. Entrepreneur don't think like that. Entrepreneur, like, how am I gonna leave a legacy behind for my family, not make a way for my family?
How many of us knew that
Yeah.
your neighborhood was gentrified by Black people? So I always hear that. Like, I really, it bothers me when I hear people that look like us say, oh, the gentrification, oh, they're coming in, they're taking our property. That property was for sale, so why didn't you buy it? So it's the same thing. My family's from Mississippi. My grandmother still lives in Mississippi. And she's lived, like you said, your parents, she's lived in her house for over 30 years. That's the only house I've ever known. And she told me she brought me to that house when I was born. I'll be 40 this year. So she's lived in that house for a very long time. And I'm noticing that the grandparents are dying off. They left the house, I guess, for the children to take care of, and the children are not taking care of it. Now it's the grandchildren who are following in those footsteps and not taking care of the home. And I can just see, at some point, someone that doesn't look like us over those properties and then renting it back to us. And I hear people say that all the time. And I'm usually the oddball in that conversation. So I don't even join it because I don't think like you. Because my whole thing is nobody can take something away from you that you want. they just can't do it. So you can't tell me that this house was for $15,000 and you couldn't figure out how to get $15,000 to buy this house, or, you know, whatever the case is, so that you can continue to own this house, or you lost the house because you didn't pay the taxes. You know, so those things I don't understand. So I never understood the argument. And maybe, like you said, I think differently. So you can't take
Yeah.
something away from me that I want. It's just not gonna happen. Yeah, so I completely agree. And I like to have control of what's going on in my neighborhoods. My son is 19 now, so I'm not at the parent teacher meetings and things like that anymore because he's in college. But when he was in school, and you and I agree on this too, he's played sports since he was 5. And that was one thing about me as far as being an entrepreneur. I don't want to ask someone permission to go
Mhm.
see my son play when I've invested my money into him playing this sport. So that was very important to me. So out of his entire life, I missed one game. And when I tell you, it hurt me so much to miss that game, you know, and that's very important. So I definitely commend you for that. And I feel like
Exactly.
when we become parents, it's not about us anymore. We definitely have to think outside the box, or I think another way, shift our thought process when it comes to our children, especially if we want them to, you know, hold on to the torch, or carry the torch or the baton or whatever to the
Exactly.
next level. We definitely have to do something different.
In our last segment, Growing Our Tribe, we shout out another small Black-owned business, as well as a book that has helped us in growing our minds, which in turn grows our business.
Do you have, and you can give as many as you want, do you have another Black-owned business that you would like to share
I do. My first one I would
your
say is
platform with
Bonnie
today?
Stewart with Calcom Mutual Mortgage. She is my preferred mortgage lender, and she also did my mortgage on my home. She's located in Smyrna. Um, do I have her phone number? You got to give me a minute to look it up. But her webpage is bonniestewart.com. And yep, Bonnie Stewart.
And this is Bonnie,
Yep.
BONNIE. Okay, bonniestewart.com. If her phone number is located
Yeah,
on
I'm
her
going to give you her
webpage,
phone number.
our
Give me one
listeners
moment. I
definitely
can
can
look
look
it up
that
for
up. Okay, go ahead.
you. And her phone number is 678-248-3685. Her email is, yep, and her email is
Okay, and that's
bstewart
Bonnie Stewart.
at calconmutualmortgage.com. And she's Black, and she owns that's her mortgage company
Okay,
that she
that's
owns.
excellent.
So definitely gotta let her know. And she is like the top
Oh,
10
wow.
mortgage lenders in Atlanta. So she's dope. She really is. My next one,
Okay.
oh yeah. And
Okay,
then my
we
next
definitely
one
gonna be
is
checking out Bonnie
Novo
for
Bar
sure.
and Grill. My girl Ebony owns that. She's also hosting my event, Black Queens of Money Empowerment Brunch. We meet every quarter, and we're going to meet February 4th if this coronavirus let us be. Um, not February, I'm sorry.
No, not
It's a long
February.
day.
February is
April
already
4th.
passed.
April 4th if coronavirus let us be.
April 4th.
Ideally, I haven't canceled it yet. I don't plan on it. I'm going to wait for these 2 weeks, but yeah. Novo Bar and Grill is a Black-owned restaurant, Black woman-owned restaurant. Let me add that. And in downtown College Park, she has great service,
Definitely.
great food, and yeah. And you,
Okay, and she's on Instagram at Novu,
yes,
NOUVEU Bar and
yep.
Grill, all spelled out. Okay, so go ahead and well tell us about a book. Has there been a
Yeah.
book
So
that
one
has
of the
helped
books that
you
I
or
like
your business
is
grow?
the One Thing is by Keller Williams, Gary Keller, And I really like that book. It really helped me focus on the reason of why I'm doing business. Because Gary Keller always tells us as real estate agents, you don't do real estate for the money. Because once you make your money, then what are you going to do? Like, and there's never enough money, because once you make a certain, now you need more, then you need more, and that's never ending. So that book really helps you focus on why are you in business and why you want to make a difference. And it just made me hone on to like, hey, reason why I'm in business, being honest, is because of my daughter, and I want to create a life for her. And then also, I do want to retire from actually real estate sales at the age of 40. But I'm not going to retire real estate. I'll be getting investment properties at that point, but actually day-to-day sales. And I think real estate sales is going to allow me to do that.
And then how do we find you so that we can get more information about the event, sign up for the event? If we're looking for a new home, a new investment property, or we're trying to sell our current
So
home,
what you
how
can
do we
do is
get
go
in
to IG.
contact with
My IG is
Miss
Realtor
Renita
Renita.
Crawley?
Realtor and then Renita, Renita. All my information is on there. Click the Get Ticket button on my page. That's where you'll find the Black Queens of Money Empowerment Brunch. I also have a flyer on my page. Pretty much everything is there on Instagram. If you don't have an Instagram, you can call me at 404-955-5977. I'm very prompt to text messages. If you don't have a phone, email me. My email is Renita, Renita, Crawley, Crawley, @kw.com. So those are my best methods. I am on Facebook, but my Facebook is personal, so don't feel shaded if I don't add you. It's literally on my Facebook page. You have to be either related to me or you have to be a real friend. I don't really know how that's that, because I post a lot of pictures of my child on there and I'm kind of paranoid. So that's IG, LinkedIn. I'm Realtor Renita on LinkedIn.
Oh,
Realtor,
absolutely.
and I have a business page on Facebook. It's still Realtor Renita. Everything is Realtor Renita.
Renita, I have really, really enjoyed our conversation. I always want to be mindful of our guests and their time. We went over the 60-minute mark, but I tell you, the jewels that you dropped are beneficial not only to me, but anyone who listens to this podcast. So I thank you very, very much for availing yourself to me and to our listeners. And I'm sure if they use this information that you have given us, they will be successful in any of their real estate endeavors.
Thanks.
So
Thank you so much for
thank
having
you
me.
so much for sharing with us today.